Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in or listening in. This is Sharonda, and this is my podcast as well as my YouTube webinar, which is entitled Spiritual Sense. For those who may be listening in or tuning in, you can listen to this on my podcast, which is on Spreaker, and it's under my name, Sharonda King. And the podcast is entitled Spiritual Sense. And so, as I mentioned on yesterday, in regards to topics that I was going to speak on and under my spiritual sense, I said I was going to speak on the topic of nirvana and give some clarity and some information that I pulled up online in regards to nirvana. Okay, so we're going to start off. What is nirvana? Many people may have heard of nirvana. You may be aware of what nirvana is, but haven't really specifically referred to it as nirvana. So I'm on a website and it says that it is a concept that is in Indian religions, such as Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, and Sikhism, that represents the ultimate state of soteriological release, the liberation from dukkha and samsara. It mentions that in these religions, it's a state of perfect quietude, freedom, highest happiness, as well as the liberation from attachment and worldly suffering, and the end of samsara, which is the round of existence. It says non-Buddhist as well as Buddhist traditions describe these terms for liberations differently. According to Hindu philosophy, it is the union of or the realization of the identity of Atman and Brahman, depending on the Hindu tradition. In Jainism, nirvana is a soteriological goal representing the release of a soul from karmic bondage and samsara. In the Buddhist context, nirvana refers to realization of non-self and emptiness, marking the end of rebirth by stilling the fires that keep the process of rebirth going. To achieve this status, one has to get rid of three psychological evils: raga, which is greed and desire; dvesha, anger; and moha, delusion. So give me just a moment. So it just goes over into details as to nirvana and things of that nature. I'm going to touch on this topic because, as I mentioned about your spiritual awakening or your spiritual epiphany, and what that is in terms of your reaching that point of nirvana. So we're going to go to spiritual awakening, and I think that's what I'm going to entitle this episode today, because nirvana is something that is, it is an end of suffering. But before you make that transition, you will be prepared by way of nirvana before you make that transition to transcend. But I'm going to also speak on spiritual awakening. So before I go into such topics, I'd like to also state my disclaimer. This podcast is an open social discussion podcast. So it's for those individuals who truly have interest in whatever the topic that may be. Okay. I'm not doing this podcast nor this webinar to argue anybody. to reason with anybody or to disagree with anybody. I mean, we could agree to be disagree. We could agree to disagree, okay, by equitable means, okay. So that being said, it is optional. If just so happened that this podcast is in relation to your particular lifestyle, religious belief, that may be by happenstance or by chance. And what does that mean? I'm not looking anybody up. I'm not doing no surveillancing of anybody. I haven't reached out and spoke to anybody. So if it just so happened to correlate in your mindset, that could be the Spirit of God as to, if you need to hear this, okay? So, but I'm using the term of nirvana because nirvana is a state of being. So, I can't go a whole 30 minutes talking about a state of being, but what I can talk about is spiritual awakening. And that's what I'm going to entitle again this podcast episode, Spiritual Awakening, which will put you towards your nirvana for that transition. So what is spiritual awakening? Is the notion of spiritual awakening has been around for some centuries, according to this article that I'm reading. Many people refer to it as nirvana or enlightenment or bliss. It begins the moment a person can step back and awake to their life with a new sense of being in this world. You will begin to question yourself, such as, who am I? And why am I here? And I find myself saying that quite a bit. And I'm pretty sure, a lot of people out there in the world may find themselves saying some of the similar things. The idea of the spiritual awakening was popularized in the Western world by a famed psychiatrist called Jung, and it's spelled Jung. And I want to say that it's pronounced as Jung, who described the process as coming back to the original self, but with the experience of rising to a higher state of consciousness has always been an intrinsic part of what it means to be human. So what causes spiritual awakening? Well, it says a spiritual awakening can be triggered by anything from the completely mundane to the completely life-altering. So it can be, through life-changing events such as losing your job, moving away from a home, a car accident, to name a few. You can also bring about a spiritual awakening by opening a spiritual door as well. It says oftentimes they are spontaneous. So, it may be out of the blue that you receive these revelations from God. Life-threatening illnesses, car accidents, divorces, war, pandemics, quarter life, or midlife crisis, mental health crisis, such as clinical depression or anxiety, even a near-death experience. So when you get these life-altering events that are unexpected, such as accidents or, a death or, a critical illness or even a terminal illness, sometimes these things can offset your spirit. And once you begin to go through these things, revelation will come to you, and then that will begin a spiritual renewing. Once you have received that spiritual renewing, I think that, and at that point in time, God will give you a choice. Things will be revealed to you as to how life truly worked and how it has been working. And you either have a choice as to whether you want to continue on, and he put you on the path of your nirvana, where you release, Or you may want to just transition over and say, you know, I find that there's some better things for my experience that this realm, this physical natural realm cannot provide for me any longer. So then I can, you know, choose at that point during the transition process to actually transcend, meaning to go back to the spirit realm. Okay. 21 signs and symptoms of a spiritual awakening. So we're going to begin. You feel disconnected and detached. So, you know, as I mentioned, oftentimes, you know, people who have received that higher sensibility, higher being up here, you know, but we can talk on it on a bigger scale because, you know, the head, you know, this is where a lot of, you know, we refer to mental, you know, mental concerns in terms of the head, but we can talk of it in terms of the top as well. So when there is a detachment that's going on with the spirit, particularly if something going on within the mind or within, you know, on a bigger scale within the, you know, spiritual sense, like, you know, those spirits are looking to call or call it in a sense. I think this is why a lot of times people may feel anxiety and depression and things of that nature, because this is, you know, this is a wake-up call from the other side about some things that, you know, we are not in agreement with. And once you have summoned those spirits in your life, you have to understand they can't turn a blind ear once you have turned them on, so to speak. So if you say you're going to be all or nothing, it's going to be that, in other words. So it says that first, the spiritual awakening process can feel overwhelming and confusing. It can feel like everything was thought to you thought to be true about your life was a lie. So you know, you'll feel a state of alienation, like, oh my gosh, you know, I've been deceived this whole time. This whole time I've been deceived. That's how you would feel. You would feel a disconnection from things and people that you once enjoyed. You would just see things in a different aspect, like things that you like, you would no longer desire those things. Activities that you know was fond of. Number two, it said you've reevaluated your beliefs. So, you know, some people may choose to, you know, take on new belief systems. Things you once believed, you no longer believe those things any longer. You no longer feel connection to what you was once connected to. Like there's a new belief or perhaps a new religion, quitting a job to pursue your real passions. Your priorities are likely different now. Like you are beginning to put your attention and your focus towards a new direction at this point in time. Number three, your dreams are more vivid. Okay, so it seems as though your dreams are, as I mentioned, lucid. Like your dreams are almost futuristic and realistic. Like it's the way I can explain it. It's like looking in, because I've had some lucid, and I don't do any drugs. I don't drink. Maybe once in a while. Very rarely do I drink. Okay, I was smoking the cigarettes a little bit too many. I have put them down, put them back up. I haven't smoked in the last going on about a couple of weeks now. So, but it's your dreams are so, I just can't explain it. It's a lucid dream. It's like the colors are more vivid. They're very bright and vivid. It's just like kind of similar to, you know, watching one of these newly 4K TVs, if that's the newest technology that's out here. It's just like looking down and looking into a 4K type of television where it is optimum pixels and the colors are so vibrant, and it's just it's that's the best way I can explain it. Like your vision has been enhanced, so to speak. Yeah, so you will receive revelation and dreams that you have had. It mentions about dreams are more vivid. You will have, a revelation that will come and you will see more clearly, more focused now. Number 4, you experience more synchronicity and deja vu. So you will begin to look at people and see people that was in your dreams. And I had this to happen, oftentimes we dream and you may see people in your dreams and you're like, who are these people? I don't know who these people are. But when it has come to the time where you see people that are in your dreams that you haven't seen before, like you have not seen these people before, that is spooky, to say the least. I've had this to happen to me. I'm not going to say this has happened all the time, because I do feel as though deja vu, we all experience deja vu. And I feel like that's the spiritual coming into focus with the physical, like in this time and space. So I feel like deja vu, we all feel that way. But to actually experience, people that you've seen in visions and dreams, sitting right here in the natural, is spooky. But it says you frequently experiences mind-blowing synchronicities, thinking about someone and randomly running into them. Now, we've all experienced that, because it was a point in time where I experienced that on a day-to-day basis. Like, can literally think of a person and boom, they're right there. Number 5, your relationships begin to shift. So when you begin to get on your path to spiritual awakening, you no longer desire, or you no longer have the same desires, if I can say, of the people that are around you. Like the things that they're on, you no longer and no longer phase you. Like you're no longer, the desire is no longer there. It says that you are transformation, you're making a transformation, and some people in your life may not understand it. They may have a hard time coming to terms. What happened with her? Who she thinks she is? Ever since she such and such. Don't worry about what people say, because those are spirits. Some of them are just bumping their gums. That means they don't even mean it. God will show you that these is how demonic spirits are to take on people, and that's how you would know what that is. They're bumping gums. Oftentimes they don't even care one way or another. Okay, now we go to number 6. It says you feel spirituality becoming an important part of your life. So you begin to take on a new a spiritual renewing. You get very, very inquisitive. You become thirsty about this newfound identity. You become very thirsty and wanting to know, other parts of the spirit, because what is here and what has been presented before me in the last, 30 plus some years is not it. And that's when it become apparent to you. I've been trying to reach you since you was a little girl. So I would just sit back waiting until you got to this point in time. Sitting waiting. Number 7, you're more intuitive. Okay. Your senses are heightened. You have, new abilities. You are more in tune with yourself. You have a more heightened sense of self. Number 8, you can sense inauthenticity and manipulation. You can sense inauthenticity and manipulation. You can see straight through people. I mean, it's nothing that they will have to say. You can see a deceiving, lying, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, Jezebel spirit. Like God will put it into your being as to what it is. It will be an image. And you wouldn't even, and this is the thing. He's been doing this the whole time, but because you are so bombarded with things that you really don't even pay much attention to it. But if you were again to slow down, I've been giving you the tools this whole time. But because you was under a lust spirit, sometimes a Jezebel spirit, sometimes a homosexual spirit, a competitive spirit, egotistical spirit, manipulative spirit, a sexual spirit. You put it out of your head and then think of it. Didn't give it much thought. Number 9, you realize everyone is on their own path. So you're able to see that everything is God and God is everything, whether it be favorably or unfavorably. It's all under the guidance of one supreme being. Whatever you deem him to be is all the same thing. And even the other gods and goddesses that exist in another dimension still have to go under the guidance of the supreme being God. Okay? So you no longer feel the need to be competitive, to have the last word or to convince anybody. You are over that now. You are onto something else. Number 10, you want to be of service. So, there's no need to prove anything to somebody. You want to be of service to people. Now, let me say this within means, okay? Because being of service to somebody and allowing somebody to use and manipulate you are two different things. You could be of service to somebody without somebody trying to use you. Simple as that. Because that's where burnout and all this stuff will come into place as well. So you have to be mindful of that. Because sometimes the test is within the test as well, Number 11, your teachers find you. So certain people are gravitated to you. They gravitate to you. A lot of time they, to give you insight, wisdom about some things, and they look for you as well to get their insight or knowledge or whatever from you as well. Number 12, you feel alone. So when you're on your spiritual path, for your spiritual awakening, sometimes you may feel alone. Sometimes you may be alone to where people don't understand where you're coming from. And you may have people to judge you and, is she on drugs or, who does she think she is? And, what's going on with her and all this other stuff. And, there's no need to argue with anybody. Okay. Number 13, you feel more connected to the natural world. The simplest things in life is what you take out the time to pay homage to, meaning direct your attention to. You don't sweat pettiness amongst people and demonic spirits. Like some people may gravitate to animals, become animal lovers. Plant lovers, looking at the simplest things of God's creation, Okay, number 14. Your senses are heightened. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, you become more in tune to your environment. You're sensitive to physical, emotional, and energetic stimulus. So your environment, you're able to hear things that are literally halfway down the block. Or even smell things that are, you have the senses kind of similar to a canine, so to speak. Your third eye is open. You're able to see things prior to you, like you can see a distant relative, and then next thing you know, you're in the store and they just so happen to show up. Someone you never even spoke of, you never, you haven't heard of from them in years, and boom, all of a sudden they show up. Number 15, you may have more bodily sensation. So I give you an example about this. Now, this right here is totally it, because I noticed this is something that has transpired with me over the last couple of years. And prior to me reaching my point of nirvana, I've been on this journey of nirvana for quite some time, but I had a situation that happened to me, a matter of a couple of years ago, where, being in healthcare, I always say the same thing to people. And, walking down the hall, after, to come into work, and I began to take on certain feelings, like physical sensations, as I entered certain patient's room, or one particular patient room. And I never felt that feeling ever, 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 ever. And this is how I knew that God was putting me in a different place in my life in terms of my intuition and picking up on things that customarily, certain people won't be able to pick up on, and things of that nature. So I do know about the body sensations, and what he was saying medically as relation to spiritually, in regards to a lot of the things that we may see in healthcare. He made that apparent to me as to what was being conveyed. Okay, so it says, your sleep disturbances are not uncommon. It's not, because I can honestly tell you, from time to time, I get visited by presences. I do. Sometimes I can see them in my third eye, and it prompts me to get up. Or I could just sense it. Like, you may not necessarily see it in your third eye or see it in your visual eye, but you could just sense a presence there. Okay. Number 16, it says you may have physical symptoms when you accompany, spiritual awakenings, fatigue, and brain fog. So, in instances such as that, that's why you want to make sure you fast if you are able to fast. Fast away, and fasting is not just, fasting in terms of food, but whatever your, habits that you have. So you're able to discern, okay, is this, or is this not this? And I give you an example, such as me with smoking. That's a habit that, is not a good habit to have. So if I sit here and tell you something in terms of what God did for me, and have did for me, the first thing somebody logically would say, well, perhaps it's the cigarettes. So when you put down the cigarettes, then you can have proof as to, well, I know it's not the cigarettes because I'm not smoking. Where's the effects of the cigarettes? So that's why it's, you could be as health conscious as you possibly can, but God will give you the ability to understand either way it goes. Meaning, you will be able to, kind of like trial and error, to rule out what it is not. Okay, I keep my eye exams. I don't sleep with my contacts. I get my yearly eye exams. I don't sleep with my contacts. I practice good health, and eye health, eating, pretty much a proper diet as proper of a diet or good of a diet as possible. So things such as that to kind of like, because it's always going to be a scientific explanation to rule out whatever the case may be. Now, hear me out, because oftentimes you would find that spiritually, he will let you know what manifests physically, and it's vice versa. So it could very well be, when you are experiencing brain fog or fatigue, that something is going on with the spirit. But it can also be something going on in the spirit to let you know when something is manifesting in the physical as well, or medically wise. So it just depends on how it goes. Number 17. So it says there's a sudden change in your habits or routine. Okay, so this is God getting you in alignment to protect and guide you. So once you have summoned him to protect you from any harm, injury, or danger and any unforeseen events, he will put it in your spirit to where all of a sudden, I'm a day person, and all of a sudden I'm a night person. All of a sudden, I don't want to go take my walk at 6 o'clock in the morning anymore. I'm deciding I want to go take my, walk in the early evening or the afternoon now. So once you have, summons the spirits to protect and guide you, you will see why those things happen as such. So it does mention about the sudden changes in habits and routine. You will begin to, prioritize your life and incorporate more nature and meditation into your life as well. 18, your outlook on the world feels different. Like you don't see the world the same anymore. There's no need to prove anything to anybody anymore. You don't see things as other people see them. You will begin to realize it's not really that big of a deal now. Somehow you feel the need to want to get me in here and to talk to me like you're talking to a dog. And or to treat me as though you're talking to a child. That's not your place to try to put me in my place. That's not your place at all. Whoever gave you the authority to think as such was wrong. And so this is how you would know I have no need to even be around this. This is I'm far above this. This is your pie. This is your path. This is no longer a desire of mine. This is what you feel conditioned to do. I don't feel conditioned to do this. And people would call you nasty. They would say all what type of things they could say. It's nothing wrong with being on your path and your journey, but being the beck of somebody's joke and mockery and confusion. No, that's not how it works. Okay, so number 19, it says increase empathy. You are feeling more connected to the world around you. You always have increased empathy regarding the suffering of others. The prevalence of suffering may feel impossible to ignore, hence why you now feel more called to be of service. Okay, I've been in healthcare for the last 20 years. I have. And don't get me wrong, I am very understanding of, conditions and what warrants a person to act and behave in the manner that they do. But when you are a person that is understanding, that's all it would be, is understanding. People will constantly do and pick and pry and probe and think they can speak in a manner to aggravate or agitate you. So understanding is something totally different than being of service. Now, if a person is in a situation where they can't do for themselves and can't help themselves, like totally, truly are not able to, can't help it, that's something different. But when a person manipulates the situation, I'm not saying God not at no point in time told me to be anybody's fool in order to go to heaven and be a servant to him. At no point in time did he tell me that. And you will begin to understand this is the testing of the spirits. Because see, a lot of these people begin to think that you are stupid. They do. Number 20, you display more compassion. On top of feeling more empathetic, it says through your spiritual awakenings, you feel more compassion towards others while still wanting to hold them accountable. That's true. I don't get me wrong. I still have compassion for people. I still can feel empathy for people and sometimes sympathy. I can. But there is a drawing board in the midst of it all. It's a drawing board because I don't take, or at least I try not to manipulate the situation. And there's times where you may be put in situations where you're like, okay, this is what they want you to do, so they can sit back and say, oh, she's not as prudent as she may seem to be as well. So you'll find that happening. Number 21, you have a newfound curiosity. I mentioned this earlier. You feel as though your hunger and you thirst for a life that is beyond what this natural physical sense can provide for you. Now, that's not to say that I am longing for my transition over. No, 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 no. This is God letting me know this is how a lot of these spirits that are presented to me feel. This is how a lot of them feel. So this is the thing about empath, where you are able to discern and understand this is the feelings of the people that are sitting before me. These are not my feelings. So you have to be somebody that is spiritually in tune with yourself and sure of who you are. Because sometimes when you have all these different entities and pressure coming towards you like this, it's hard to discern at times. It is. Okay, so it goes on and it mentions about the process and stages of awakening. Okay, it says the spiritual awakening. It says this is the beginning of your spiritual journey. As you start to question everything you once knew, you begin to clear things out of your life, habits, relationships, old belief systems, and invite new, more enriching things in. You may feel like something is missing, but you haven't quite figured it out yet. During this phase, it's common to feel lost, confused, and down. And I do understand that, once you are, have made that spiritual renewing and you are no longer into the things that you once believed, and you put away those childish things, as they say, and want to mature onto a new path in life. It will, and you can even see it physically, like you will actually see a physical transformation, even without you even, I made the comment to my daughter who is 5. I told her a key fun fact for her to know as she gets older. Some women don't have to go to the gym. They won't put all this pressure on you, go to the gym. Some women don't have to go to the gym. Some things will come to you by way of revelation. Your countenance will show, blood flow, hair growth. I told her some of these things would just come through revelation. People will begin to even physically look different. They will. effortlessly. And that's through the favor of revelation, the favor of God. The dark night of the soul. It says the second stage of a spiritual awakening is kind of what it sounds like, a very rough patch, the lowest patch. In fact, in many ways, this is when your soul is recalibrating, stripping away all aspects of the ego. It's very challenging, but once you hit rock bottom, there's nothing to go but up, forcing you to make a real change. So this is on your path to nirvana. This is where you have reached your path to nirvana, where you are getting ready to release, and the transformation is occurring, or a transition if you do so desire. Okay. Number 3, the sponge. It says once you made it through your dark night of the soul, you're ready to create your new and improved awake life. In the third phase, it's all about trying things on for size and exploring. So it says you're reaching into different hobbies, religions, relationship. You're trying to figure out what meshes with your spirit, or what you are in agreement with in terms of your spirit. Okay, so it says the Satori, or the Satori self, which is the awakening or comprehension. In Buddhist traditions, it is referred to as Kensho, or seeing into one's true nature. In this phase, you begin to not only recognize, but honor and embody your true nature through your gifts, skills, and talents. The soul sessions. Think you've reached enlightenment yet? Not quite. The 5th stage refers to as soul sessions. Can you take some? So it mentions about building an actual structure in your life through which your true spirit can thrive. This can take some trial and error and lots of different stages to discover your routines and rituals that works for you. The surrender. It says the second to the last of the awakening process. Surrendering is all about releasing any remaining structures, belief, or facets of the ego that are keeping you away from your truth. At this point, you've gotten to know your soul. You figure out, pretty much what works for you. And you may still have some habits or people that are holding you back. You will have to release to, pretty much gain control over your destiny and forward you on your spiritual path. Awareness and service. So with awareness and service, once you have full awareness of your own divinity, in every moment as you flow through life with grace and clarity, you live in service to others, which brings you greatness and contentment. So this is some good information in terms of spiritual awakenings. It does have how to make space for spiritual awakenings. I am one of those people. I am of service, but I can do what I can do, and that's that. There's nothing to argue about, because I do believe in order to be of service, you have to be of service of self and your individual immediate persons before you can be of service to anybody else. And anybody that would tell you contrary to that is toxic. Okay, simple as that. So I do thank you for tuning in to this Spiritual Sense podcast, as well as this Spiritual Sense webinar, and speaking on Nirvana, as well as the spiritual awakening. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you're more than welcome to comment below. Please no inappropriate comment, questions, or suggestions. Until then, thank you for tuning in. You have a safe and wonderful day. Good day.